The Niger Delta, known for its rich biodiversity and culture, has provided economic and ecological significance to Nigeria. This region plays host to Nigeria's major oil industry, despite its natural wealth and economic contributions. The Niger Delta faces several challenges related to climate change, insecurity, and conflicts. These issues threaten the region's stability, environmental health, and socio-economic development. The connection between climate change impact and insecurity has given rise to economic challenges exacerbated by ecological degradation and disruption. The Niger Delta is one of the world's most vulnerable regions to climate change impacts. The increasing loss of agricultural land due to coastal erosion and sea encroachment is a severe livelihood concern. Critical elements including heightened poverty, unemployment, massive oil pollution, and criminality. Communities rely on fishing and farming for survival. Seeing the distortion in these occupations resulting from climate change and existential threats of depleting land resources, community dwellers are left with difficult choices of resettling as part of a coping strategy. In the context of climate justice and raising voices in crafting solutions, several frontline environmentalists and community activists have profiled real solutions to defending lands and water bodies from mindless extractivism and pollution. Many environmentalists explain that the Niger Delta has faced several climate change issues.
The Niger Delta, as we all know it, experts have already said a lot about the Niger Delta. Basically, it's a region that is rich in biodiversity. Like the rich life of the Niger Delta is something that has that everybody knows about, but suddenly or recently it's disappearing and it's dying slowly due to some activities that are anthropogenic and some are natural. Basically, the human factor that destroys the ecosystem in Niger Delta happens to be more than the other things that destroy the ecosystem. So the Niger Delta, like we all know it, like I know it, is rich in biodiversity, and it's also losing that biodiversity really fast. It's like one of the last biodiversity areas in the country, as we already know that the north is drying up because of desertification. Losing the south will also be bad for us because we have the sea level rise from the Lagos area. So losing the Niger Delta will be heavily detrimental to all of us in the country.
The impact of the erosion currently that is stealing their land away is depriving them not only of their natural area of residence, which also attaches a lot of cultural and traditional affiliation. It is also making them to lose their source of livelihood, and it is creating, and these two factors particularly come with other multiple consequences. And which leads technically to increase in vulnerability and poverty of these people, because once you lose your source of livelihood and you do not have an alternative, that fits into that source of livelihood, or that replicates that source of livelihood, or that sustains you for the basic needs of life. Once you lose, also together with that, you also lose your land where you have cultural and traditional attachments. Once it gives you a sense of low self-esteem, and people become forced to vacate those kinds of communities, because at some point this erosion makes those communities unlivable. And you are forced, survival instinct forces you to move to a place where you could find some relative peace for survival. And that peace is just that you want a place where you can also, not just to live, but a place where you can also manage some other acts of survival. And that shift, unfortunately, that's why I said that in the long run, this kind of what we see as this dislocation can become a tragedy if not properly taken care of.
We have to be conscious of our connections with the environment, because we are part of that environment. wherever we are connected and wherever we are located, we have to receive the impulses, the messages of the environment, because the environment is always speaking to us. Humans have forgotten or lost the capacity to hear the many messages that we have around us. Every living being has a communicate, and they always try to speak to us, because our lack of hearing or lack of attention to what is going on around us, to what the other beings we live with are telling us, also allows humans the liberty of being irresponsible for the kind of things that we do. And so wherever I'm located in an environment, in Niger Delta or anywhere else, first thing is that I'm conscious that I must hear the impulses, the signals that are coming from other beings all around me. And that way I'm able to respond in a way that is sensitive, a way that is respectful, and a way that is built on gratitude to all the help that we get all the time. We are never alone, and we can't live alone.
The abuses that these communities are faced today, the people are just existing. Our ancient man, the ancient guy here who left us, said that the fishes they eat, there's oil on their stomach, and you say adapt. What am I saying? Let's not romanticize this thing. Let's not romanticize. My worry is that when you people say what the communities can do, what the communities know, whether you present it or you don't present it, the communities will adapt. They will try and mitigate because they have no choice. We, as those who go there, should allow them to do what they can do, but to realize in actual sense that they are not the only choices. Where are the choices we are presenting to them? Where is it? Where? What knowledge? What knowledge are we talking about? Knowledge that we have already destroyed? Destroyed by destroying the environment?
Communities of the Niger Delta region are faced with cross-cutting climate change issues, including floods, erosion, unpredictable rainfall patterns, and excessive heat. These impacts are multiplied by massive pollutions. According to NOSRA reports, which amounted to 1,300 spills on an average of 5 spills per day in 2018 and 2019. Most affected by this are the impoverished extractive communities, which have been treated as sacrificial zones since the first commercial oil well was sunk in Olobiri 68 years ago.
Climate change is not something that is coming to go. It has come to stay. And it has really affected us in Igbo community. We have a whole lot of challenges, just few to mention. The sea rising is as a result of the climate change. A colleague of mine that has a sit-out has so many where he rented to do his business. Within a short period of time, he loaned money from the bank to fix that place. But within a short period, he couldn't even recover the money that he loaned from the bank. To the greatest surprise of us, the sea rises and takes over the place. Just one day he came up and hit the building. Everything, the freezer, everything in that place collapsed. That place does not, you can't know that there was a structure in that place. That was as a result of the sea rising. So many people lost their houses, lost their life, lost their properties as a result of climate change, and which causes from the production in our community.
Climate change has really affected us, predominantly people in Bonny are fishermen, but then they still do subsistence farming. So the both ways they've been affected. One, in the area of rise in sea level, which has affected them, especially those that are planting, those that are into small farming system or subsistence farming. It has affected them when the flood comes, when the level of the sea rises, it affects them. Their crops are being affected because you know the crops, they need fresh water, but our area is salt water. So the salt water at times gets into these areas, and then it affects the crop. And also, at times it overflows into fresh water. So for those that are fishing, that are into freshwater fishing, it also affects them, because those fish are not, they don't survive on fresh salt water. So once the salt water gets into the fresh water, it kills them.
Many children don't go to school because of flood. Like in Bayelsa State now, they have 2 breaks within 1 term, flood break and one other one I couldn't remember at the moment. So you see that it reduces education within the children, because they go to school, now is holiday, they have to go back to school in the next 1 month. They are kids, so they might tend to forget. So it reduces education participation among the children. How about health? Flood brings about all kinds of diseases. Talk about cholera, talk about tuberculosis and all of that, including malaria. So health centers will have to be equipped to be able to withstand this kind of pressure that erosion brings. We need to also understand that in times of climate change, you don't normally be able to predict the varying temperatures at that point in time. And we that come from a place that also have endangered species, it is difficult to adapt, because when we are doing sea turtle conservation, we're doing dolphins conservation, these things, yes, it is endangered, but they have to survive, so they tend to look at them to poach those things. And where you go, they'll say, hey, don't kill it. It means that they will fight back at you.
We made findings, findings that were specific to each of the communities, Niger Delta communities we visited in different Niger Delta states, River State, Delta State, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, and Bayelsa State. So we made several findings that showed that there was an indirect link between climate change and conflict in these communities. Different examples were given. This year, we decided to go back and see if there are new dimensions to the findings that were made in the last research carried out in 2022. And we found out a lot. For instance, I personally, myself and my colleagues, we visited Akasa clan in Brass local government area in Bayelsa State. We visited Congo community. And in that particular community, we were told stories of neighboring communities in the same clan, because Akasa has different communities. It's a clan. As we speak, Sangana community in Brass LGA, it's gone. In fact, it's deserted because the sea has encroached. There was sea rise and massive sea wave. The sea broke through their defenses. It broke through the embankment and engulfed the community, and the community persons have left. People in Congo are saying they don't even know the whereabouts of these people, which I think is very dangerous, because not knowing their whereabouts means you don't know how they're surviving. What have they been involved in? What have they been involved in? Nobody knows their whereabouts. Now, in Boni, there's a community called Finitasingi. In the last research, we were informed that they have moved 3 times from their original location. Where we met them was their 3rd, place of settlement, and they informed us that they're likely to move. When we went the second time, we were told that they've moved again because the sea keeps encroaching.
Experts and stakeholders continue to raise awareness about the interconnectedness of climate change and conflicts, emphasizing the urgent need for collective action for mitigating the adverse effects of climate change on communities' security.
The impacts of climate change in most coastal states in the Niger Delta over the years have been severe, especially on the quality and availability of freshwater, agriculture, and population, with significant negative impacts on the aquatic organisms. So the coastal communities are hence predisposed to food insecurity, health challenges, and loss of means of livelihood, all of which contribute to mass migration and general insecurity.
There will be no future in the Niger Delta until we change our current trajectory. So if we continue to do things the way we're doing things, we'll never get a brighter future, because we cannot continue doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if we want something to change in the Niger Delta, we need to change our models. And that is one of the key fundamental issues that COSET, Coalition for Socio-Ecological Transformation, is raising. You cannot continue doing the same thing that has brought us to this point. Change the way we consume, change the way we get raw materials.
It's going to be very difficult for us to have any significant or sustainable change if the government doesn't get involved, if community people are left on their own. If these issues, we don't push them to the right institutions and authorities. For instance, this thing is happening in Sangana as I speak to you. It's not making the headlines. And we are wondering why. How is it not making, how is a community completely eroded and yet it's not making the headlines? If these issues are not spoken about, are not reported, and stakeholders sit together, find these community people that are currently displaced, bring them to the table, and we talk about strategies, talk about what can be done, talk about resettling them, I don't think we would have a lot in our hands to deal with as a people.
This kind of erosion, you know, what it does not just displace you, it makes you to lose property, because when you are displaced, you have lost your home, you have lost your property, you have lost even your economic assets, because some of these people have their farmlands that have been lost and they cannot reclaim. They have lost their animals and livestock that they cannot be reclaimed. They have even lost some other property, you know, that are either connected to their economy or connected to their culture. Some people are even losing places where they have buried loved ones, which serves as a very, you know, emotional and calming memory to them. So all of these things, by the time you lose them, the implication is not just economic, that you lose your sources of employment, your sources of livelihood. Your children also lose a source of employment, because sometimes it is not just the farmlands that are there. There are also associated services and workplaces that are also in these environments. So everything is lost. You lost livelihood, you lost employment, you lost your sense of belonging, you lost your self-esteem, and in the overall sense, even some women, sometimes we leave women and the youth and children particularly much more devastated, because in escaping, the men, it is easier for the men and the young boys to move farther away into some cities, into some newer locations than the women can relocate. And so you leave the women stuck at some more vulnerable location and with a lot of incidentals.
Climate change is a global crisis with severe impacts at national and subnational levels. The effects on livelihoods, environmental degradation, displacement of people, desecration of cultural heritage, and outright loss of traditional communities occur with high frequency. In the Niger Delta alone, an estimated 1 meter sea rise can engulf 18,000 square kilometers of Nigeria's coastal zone, or about 26% of the Niger Delta region. The global transition towards renewable energy will radically reduce international dependence for hydrocarbon fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas. Petroleum civilization is winding down. The handwriting is boldly written on the wall. The climate crisis has been caused by the extraction and burning of fossil fuels, with emissions from this source taking on carbon budgets and wrapping the earth with a thick blanket of greenhouse gases, resulting in the hottest temperature in recorded history. Unless Nigeria takes steps to wean herself from the dependence on fossil fuels, the global shift will meet her unprepared with dire economic consequences. It will also continue to expose the Niger Delta region to pollution, biodiversity degradation, loss of livelihoods, and severe health challenges. This is the time to prepare for post-extractive economy. Time is running out. Inaction will have the region washed away.